Fans of UFC London had been looking forward to the fight between Tom Aspinall and Curtis Blaydes that took place on the 24th of July, 2022. Unfortunately, for the second week in a row, it ended in the first round due to an injury. The event became an anticlimax for the evening as the fight had to stop within just 15 seconds. How bizarre! In this video, we'll be talking about what went down. First, the players of the match and others who were featured. For those unaware of these two players, it's important to know their fighting backgrounds as well as who else was featured at the event. Curtis Blaydes entered the match having won 2 rounds straight and 6 of his last 7 fights. He was last seen in action in March this year, scoring an early second round TKO of Chris Dawkhouse at UFC Columbus. This was a huge moment for him because it earned him a performance bonus. Before entering this match with Tom, he was also ranked 4th in the heavyweight standings. Similarly, Tom Aspinall is also a highly skilled player, having won 8 rounds straight and was a perfect 5-0 in the Octagon. Achieving a status like this certainly isn't an easy task. To add on to that, he's finished every fight so far in the UFC, with TKOs over Jake Collier, Alan Baudot, and Sergey Spivak, as well as the submissions of Andrei Arlovsky and Alexander Volkov. The man had earned 4 performance bonuses in total in those outings. The event that they both took part in on the 24th of July featured Jack Hermanson. This came off as a split decision loss to Sean Strickland in February, who took Chris Curtis. He had filled in for an injured Darren Till following a win over Rodolfo Vieira last month. The card also featured the highly hyped talent Paddy Pimblett. He's known for taking on Jordan Levitt in a grudge match earlier, as well as action from Molly McCann, Alexander Gustafsson, and Paul Craig. Now let's break down exactly what happened during the match and how the injury occurred. As mentioned earlier, both Tom and Curtis were highly skilled players, so it was hard to imagine who would end up winning. Audiences were hoping for their personal favorite to win, but what actually ended up happening was something that no one saw coming. With the backing of an excited crowd inside London's O2, Tom made good on his promise to attack from the off. But in the very opening exchange of the match, he appeared to land awkwardly on his knee after throwing a heavy leg kick. This made him fall down to the canvas in obvious agony. We couldn't help but wince. The most surprising thing about this is that it all happened within 15 seconds. Viewers were confused as to what had happened after seeing Tom on the ground. They later realized the match had ended when referee Herb Dean quickly came forward and called off the fight. Meanwhile, Curtis was just standing there with an expression of disappointed confusion on his face. He certainly didn't expect something like this to happen either. Tom remained on the canvas for several minutes until the team arrived and attached a brace to his leg. His facial expressions clearly showed that he was experiencing a lot of pain. Eventually, he was taken away to hospital and the big event was over. The cause of the injury was not confirmed, but it looked like he had damaged his knee. Due to this unforeseen tragedy, Curtis was declared the winner. The loss for Tom, though, was disappointing for everyone because it'll almost certainly lead to him to face an extended spell on the sidelines as he recovers from his injury. But fans were glad to hear that there were no hard feelings between the two players. A few hours after the fight, Tom updated them with a photo on Instagram showing Curtis and his team had paid him a visit at the hospital. Next, how was this event similar to UFC Long Island? After the unexpected outcome of the fight between Tom and Curtis, fans couldn't help but wonder how this had happened for the second week in a row. Just recently, Yair Rodriguez and Brian Ortega had won at UFC Long Island, and it ended in quite a similar way. It was Brian's first fight back in the Octagon since he suffered a close loss to Alexander Volkanovski back in September. Everyone seemed to be rooting for him because he had the crowd, the energy, and the momentum necessary for an easy victory. It was the only challenge separating him from another shot at UFC Gold. However, all of that was cut short, including his main event bout against Yair. Just 4 minutes and 11 seconds into the first round, he had a shoulder injury, which made him fall to the ground and on his back. It clearly looked like it had been pulled out of place. The referee immediately separated them and called off the match. Just like Curtis had won his fight, Yair was declared the winner here. He also expressed his sympathies for the injured player. In fact, he even said that he would be interested in a rematch with Brian once he recovers. If that's the case with Tom and Curtis as well, fans will have another interesting fight to look forward to. In other related news, Jack Della Maddalena says he wants to fight top 15 welterweight after UFC 275. After winning the big fight with Ramazan Emeev at UFC 275 in Singapore, Jack Della Maddalena has announced his willingness to participate in 2 more fights before the year comes to an end. People who don't know who he is might might view this as an impossible task, but his recent victory testifies to his daring choice. Now that he's made it to the top of the welterweight division, he feels confident enough to fight anyone else in the top 15, as he believes he's figured out the tactics. His fight with Emeev also earned him an 11-2 victory, which is quite impressive for someone who had done only one fight beforehand. Still, getting a top 15 competitor after your first or second victory isn't easy. Most people don't get theirs until they've fought at least 4 to 5 times. So Jack isn't sure he'll get one immediately, but he hopes the opportunity will come soon enough. Jack says he's hopeful there will be a UFC fight in Australia, either by the end of this year or early next. A potential UFC fight in Perth caught his interest, and he says it would be an honor to get a place there. For example, in 2018, there was one that took place in RAC Arena. He expresses his willingness to be part of one of those because it's his homeland, and he'd love to represent his country. Next, Adrian Yanez reveals he wants to fight Sean O'Malley after his big win. Adrian Yanez elevated his status as one of the best fighters in MMA recently when he participated in a fight with Tony Kelly to open the primary card of UFC Austin. This success moved his record to 12-3 and stretched out his series of wins to 9 matches. Adrian's victory in the match with Tony created even more hype among audiences after he hit Tony with twofold birds, which came as a shock to him. It seemed like the action was a response to Tony's last appearance close to an octagon. As Tony was seen with his girlfriend Andrea Lee earlier, he was overheard calling her rival a dirty Brazilian. Similarly, it was also said that he was heard calling Brazilian fighters cheaters. After the win, Adrian seems to have his own fan base. In an interview with TMZ, he was asked what his plans for the future were. He revealed that he was interested in fighting Sean O'Malley. This sounded like a pretty bold pick to us. Now, we can't say for sure whether this will actually happen or not, because Sean's apparently fully booked right now. We also don't know if Sean will agree to the fight, but if he does, it's gonna be an interesting match to watch for sure. Lastly, boxer Sam Abdul-Rahim shot by armed men in Sydney. Shot 5 times in the chest and stomach, bleeding behind the wheel of his luxury Mercedes, he was able to make a desperate getaway. Speeding past his attackers after they gunned him down, the injured man rushed to the police for help, pulling into Faulkner Station. Officers found him slumped behind the wheel of his car before noon on the day the attack happened. Carried onto a stretcher and into an ambulance, the man was identified as professional boxer Sam Abdul-Rahim, also known as the Punisher, and is now in the biggest fight of his life. He was leaving his cousin's funeral at Faulkner Cemetery when a car of gunmen pulled up and fired multiple shots. Then it sped off and crashed nearby into a pole on Sydney Road. They scrambled out of the car quickly, ran into the traffic, and carjacked a mother and her young son. Quickly making a U-turn on the road, the men managed to escape with the stolen Ford. They were last seen heading west from Sydney Road. Right now, we can't be sure who was behind this, but the authorities are looking into it. And that's a wrap for this video. What did you think of the unexpected outcome of the UFC event between Tom and Curtis? Let us know in the comments below. Do give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell for similar videos. See you in the next one.